Okay, so in this video, we're going to cover two important topics in CSS that we haven't really talked about yet, and those are inheritance and specificity. So to start, we're going to demonstrate the way that inheritance works in CSS. So I have a simple file here. It has a single UL with 4 LIs inside. And I'm going to write my styles in a style tag just to make it easy for you to watch. You don't have to watch me flip around between files, but it's always better to actually do this in an external style sheet. So I'm going to style the UL and give it a color of purple. And when I do that, you'll see that when I refresh, the LIs actually become purple. So what happened there, I styled the UL, and the LI was indirectly changed, and it inherited that color from the parent element. So let me show you another example of that. Let's add in just a paragraph here. It starts off black, and I'm going to comment out this UL purple for now. So everything is just normal black text. I'll make this a little bigger. If I go in my style and I say body, and I give the body a color red, and I refresh this, you'll see that everything is red. So this is just demonstrating this concept of inheritance, where if we set a property on a parent, it can also affect a child element. So this is nice if we wanted to make all paragraphs and LIs all red. We don't have to select paragraphs and turn them red and then select LIs and turn them red. We can just select the body. So the next thing that I want to show is what happens if I go in here and then I decide that a paragraph, I actually want it to be green. If we refresh, we'll see, of course, that the paragraph turns green. Likewise, if I want the UL to be green, or let's do blue, and I save and refresh, the UL turns blue, and so do the LIs, because they inherit from that. So what's happening here is actually demonstrating this idea of specificity in CSS. So we have multiple styles that could be impacting this same LI. It could be red, and it starts out as red, and then we're turning it blue because all ULs are supposed to be blue. So if we go ahead and inspect one of these elements, and I'm going to make this full screen, and I'm going to increase this and increase the font size a little bit too, you'll see that the color is set as blue coming from a UL, and it tells us inherited from UL. And if we keep scrolling, you'll see inherited from body, the color is red, but it's actually crossed out. And so that means that it's not being applied at all, and instead this style is being applied. So this shows us this style is attempting to be applied, or it is targeting this element that we have selected, but it's crossed off, which means it's not actually being applied. So the next topic, which is very closely related to inheritance, is called specificity. So specificity is this idea in CSS that we can have multiple styles targeting one element, and that's happening right here. We have multiple styles targeting this one UL, or this LI, for instance. The LI is being turned red, or it's being targeted by this line, body, turning everything in the body red, and it's also being targeted by this line, which turns everything in the all ULs blue. And so then CSS has to decide which one wins. And in this case, whatever style is closest to this element, so whichever one is more specific, and so what that means is the body is very general, it's everything, and a UL is more specific, that one is going to win out. But this is just a simple case. So now let's up the ante a little bit and add in some more selectors. So let's go ahead and add in a direct LI selector, and let's make an LI orange. And as you would expect, it makes all LIs orange. And if we open up the inspector, we'll see it's being turned red by the body, but that's crossed off. It's being turned blue by the UL selector, and then it's being turned orange by the LI selector, and that one wins out. So these are all simple cases where it's pretty clear which one wins. But now let's introduce something on top of this. Let's now say I want this li to have a class called highlight, and I'll give it to 2 of them. And then I select this class, highlight, and I give a background color, or actually let's just stick with color, just so it's all the same property, color of yellow, and I save. Which one do you think is going to win out now? Let's check, and you can see that the highlight class wins, and it's turned yellow because of that highlight class. So this is showing us something where an li, we're directly targeting all li's and making them orange, and then we're also directly targeting a few li's that have this class and making them yellow. And in this case, this class wins out. So there are actually very specific rules for how this works, and I'm going to show it to you in just a second. But before that, I just want to add one more example in. So let's say I also give this element an ID, and I'm going to call it special. And I'm going to target that element with special, and I'm going to give it a color of pink. And I refresh, you'll see that that element wins out. And one more time, if we inspect, you'll see that we have a style from the body that's not applied, one from the UL that's inherited but not applied, one from the LI that is not applied, one from the class that's not applied, and then one from the ID special that is applied. So in this case, the ID wins. So as I mentioned, there are very specific rules as to how this works. And I've written them up down here, but actually I'm going to go to MDN first to show you. They have a great article on this that I highly recommend that you read. And it talks about how specificity is calculated. So when CSS sees that there are 3 or 4 different colors that this one li could be, how does it know which one to pick? And the way that it does it, it actually runs a calculation. So it assigns a numeric value to each of those selectors. So it's going to assign a numeric value to this here, and then to this one, and then to this one, and to this one. And as we know, this one wins out. So the way that it's actually calculated, we don't actually have to know the exact math, but I will show it to you here. There is a calculator that we can actually type things into online that will tell us how specific something is. So if I just select all li's, you'll see it has a specificity of 1. Now let's try selecting that class, highlight, and that is 10 times as specific. It has a specificity of 10. So that's why a class won out over the li, and that's why this element is actually yellow, because that class highlight won out over the orange color. Now if we go and we add an ID, or what we call it, special, you can see that is 100 times more specific than just the li tag. So that one wins out, and that also beats the class. So the basic rule here is that element selectors, tag names, are not very specific. Class selectors are much more specific, and then IDs are the most specific that you can get. And I'll also show you it's not limited just to one ID. So let's say we wanted to know what is more specific. I have a class and another class inside of it. So this is a descendant selector, remember. This is only 20 specificity. And if I just have a single ID, that's 100 specificity. So again, I don't want you to think that you need to be using this site all the time and calculating numbers. That's not important. All that you need to know is the order of magnitudes. So I'll go to my notes here. I have them written out. Type selectors are the least specific. So that's going to look like something like this, or li with an a tag inside of it, or even the adjacent selector. So these selectors are not very specific. But even within this here, this is going to be more specific than this. This is going to be more specific than this as well, because there are 2 elements that we're referencing. So if we actually calculated it, this is a specificity of 1, and this is 2. Then the next level is a class. So this is going to be an order of magnitude 10 times bigger or more specific than any of these. And so is the attribute selector. So where we have things like input type equals text. And so are the pseudo class selectors, which are things like hover. So a tag on hover, or input that's been checked, and other things like that that have this colon there. And then the very most specific thing is the ID selector. And so that is going to be another order of magnitude greater or more specific than these selectors here.